X said he was forcing himself to be with me. Am I in the wrong? So my ex, 31M, and I, 27F, were set up by a mutual friend. We originally were very nonchalant around each other and didn't pay each other any attention until about 7 months of knowing each other. We ended up developing feelings for each other, and he asked me out. The both of us dated with no real experience of dating. His last relationship was a couple of months, and I've never dated due to not putting myself out there and focusing on school and work. The honeymoon phase was great, and we fell for each other really hard. We said, "I love you," 2 months in. We met each other's families, we talked about kids, and things got serious really fast. Our first issue stemmed from our friend group deciding to go on a small trip out of town, and my ex began to complain and make excuses to not go. I got annoyed and eventually confronted him about this because it felt like he didn't want to spend time with me. He said that he didn't want to go and claimed that he told everyone, but we weren't listening to him. I told him not to go then because I'm not going to have fun on the trip anyways if he feels like this and I can go alone, but he refused, saying either way I'll be upset, and men always have to suffer in silence in relationships because women are naturally burdens. Him indicating that I was a burden became an itch that I couldn't scratch, and I was very bothered by this. I began to distance myself and became quite cold with him. I knew I would hurt him if I continued to act this way, so I told him how I was feeling. He revealed that he was having money problems, and this trip wasn't going to help that. He seemed annoyed that I brought up suggestions to help as I got really worried about his money situation. He had so much debt I didn't know about. I tried to tell him that I wasn't trying to be a burden, and I'll try my best not to be, but he refused to hear me out and was adamant that women are a burden and men suffering is the reality of relationships, but he's okay with that. I hated arguing, so I let it go, but it was always a nagging thing in my mind. We still went on that trip, and he seemed to be okay. However, we got into another disagreement afterwards and things felt tense between us again. So yet again I told him how I was feeling and we were able to talk about our problems, but he still refused to back down on women being a burden, no matter how much I said it upset me. Things still felt weird between us, but it felt like both of us put more effort in after that talk. I thought things were getting better, and we were healing our relationship. We got into the most petty disagreement that really shouldn't have escalated, but it did. I still go back and think if I didn't agree to go to this family dinner, we would still be together. I really didn't want to go to this event in the first place. But if such small things were tearing us apart, I think we were already doomed from the start. At this family dinner, my ex's sister was constantly calling out my ex and drawing unnecessary attention to us, making the family poke fun at our relationship. She was calling him out on not bringing drinks for me, about me needing to boss around her brother more, about ways I should be telling him what to do. I felt like she was goading me and I began to get mad at my ex. At one point in the night, I told my ex's sister that I didn't know her brother, and I blurted out that he doesn't give a shit about me when she was egging me on so much. He would later tell me he was so angry at me for saying this. I was already annoyed that night because all my ex cared about was getting food, and then he just went to the table without a second glance at me. He didn't pay me any attention, and his sister's words began to make me think that he truly didn't care about me at all to act this way. During the honeymoon phase, he never left my side. I did let my anger get a hold of me, and I realized that my outburst wasn't very productive after the fact. My ex sat in a corner and ignored everyone all night. I felt his anger towards me very clearly. I tried to say bye that night, but all he did was glare at me. I am still very resentful of my ex's sister for escalating things, especially when my ex and I were still in the healing stage. So my friend and her husband gave me their take about what they noticed. They were at the dinner too. They told me that I was essentially airing out my dirty laundry that night, and my reactions were not helpful and embarrassed him, but my ex shouldn't have gotten mad at me either, and should have been more considerate. They were pretty fair in their assessment of the situation and told me to think long and hard if I want to stay in this relationship because their friend is not going to be an easy person to be in a relationship with, and laid out all the pros and cons for me to think about. They've known him for years and know how stubborn he is. I still wanted to work on things, and I thought that we could still give things a fair shot. I tried to text my ex and apologize and arrange for a talk. He would not answer me back, and I texted him again saying that if he needed time to himself it's okay, but Please say something because I'm worried about his silence. He responded that he didn't want to talk now, and I didn't hear back from him all week. I was getting anxious, and I tried to tell him how I felt about that night, how my outburst wasn't okay, and how I felt disrespected by his sister, and how I wanted to work on things. He told me to calm down and he's busy. He then told me that I shouldn't sit there expecting him to do things for me and actually tell him what I want him to do. I replied that I wasn't expecting anything, but his sister's goading was what provoked me, and I'm sorry for letting it get to me. I gave him more time, but he was still not giving me any responses. After another week of silence, I was getting frustrated, and I told him we have to talk because it's not fair to keep ignoring me. We agreed to meet, and he breaks it off with me. He talked it out with my friend that set us up, and she gave him the same pros and cons as she gave me. He told me not to blame her for his decision. He said that he was forcing himself to be with me and things didn't feel right since he felt like I forced him to go on that trip. I couldn't believe that he was still holding this against me despite talking this out already. He said that he still loves me, but he's not ready to be in a relationship right now. I tried to talk him out of it because I felt like we didn't work hard enough to make the right changes in this relationship to give up just yet, but he said that he's already been trying so hard. He told me that he still wants to see me in the friend group and would love to fall in love with me all over again when he's ready. I'm so hurt over the fact that he let such small things become a problem and ignore my attempts to fix things, yet say that he's been trying so hard when it's been mostly me that has taken the steps to try to communicate and make things better. I find it ridiculous that he still wants to see me around, but he's the one who broke it off, saying he felt uncomfortable around me and was forcing himself to be with me. He can't have it both ways. Initially, I wanted to hold on to the hope that we'll start over again in the future, but I recognize that our relationship was toxic, and I hate him so much right now. I have grown so resentful of the pain he's caused me that I don't know if I ever want to see his face again. Did I take all the wrong steps in this relationship?